warm welcome from CXOTV.news, a flagship brand under Techplus Media Group. I am Anand Sharma from Techplus Media, your host for today's event. We have been running this webinar series titled Marketing Mondays for over a year now to provide a platform to marketeers to learn from fellow marketing gurus. Today we have yet another important topic that's both relevant for organizations as well as their leaders as individuals. And it is how organizations should build and leverage personal branding of their leadership. You must have often heard that XYZ is a brand icon or ABC is a brand ambassador. Let us understand the nuances of becoming a brand in yourself, or personal branding. We will be covering pointers like what is personal branding, how a leader creates one for himself or herself, how does an individual leader influences the organization with his presence as well as absence. We have an eminent panel today. It's my privilege to host them, and let me request them to introduce themselves. Going in the alphabetical order, Evelyn, why don't you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for taking time off to attend this webinar. I'm Evelyn from Singapore, and then I'm the country marketing for a US cybersecurity firm. So I've just joined them in April last year, which was during the new normal time. But it has been challenging. I guess it's all the same for the rest of the other online marketers as well. Everything just gone digital. Hope to hear a lot from you guys and share. And let's learn from each other.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. Welcome on board. Hey, Mohita, do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Mohita Hattangady. I head channel marketing programs and enablement for a division of Schneider Electric called Secure Power. We work mostly with IT channel partners and alliances as well. I cover a very large region, APJ, Middle East Africa, South America, and CIS. I've been with Schneider Electric 17 years. I started my career in India and in advertising, and I've been in Singapore for the past 15 years, working in various roles in marketing. So it's a real big privilege to be here. I'm very honored that you took this opportunity, gave me this opportunity to speak, and hopefully I'll have some insights which will help people around us, and I will learn something in the process as well. Thank you.
Of course, Mohita, honor is all mine. Thank you so much. Hi, Udit. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Udit Agarwal. I'm been an enterprise marketer for almost 18 years in my life. I'm working with UiPath as the enterprise marketing director, and I look after partner marketing as well. The UiPath, as some of you may know, and some of you may not, it's the fastest unicorn, I think, in the space of automation, and the largest enterprise software company when it comes to the automation space today. We are the leaders in that space. So I love what I do, that is marketing. And thank you, Anand, for inviting us here. And I think this would be a great session, and I would be learning along with my fellow panelists as much as from the questions from the audience. So looking forward for this great session.
Thank you so much, Udit. And once again, welcoming Evelyn, Mohita, and Udit on the panel today. As we all know, both personal as well as corporate brands have an effect on each other. They are both interdependent. We have seen markets crashing or jumping when a senior leader leaves or joins the organization. How an organization can look into developing their leaders as a brand ambassador and capitalize on that. What stakes does the individual leader have in it? What if the leader leaves? Or what if he stays? Well, let's learn what our panelists have to comment on today. The views expressed by the speaker are their own and may not represent the viewpoint of the organizations they work with. Evelyn, starting with you, we all know how important it is to build a personal brand, or perhaps we assume that we know, because only 20% of leaders are able to devote resources to build a personal brand. Can you help us understand better why building a personal brand is very important for an individual.
Yeah, thanks, Anand. I think it's really important, especially at this time and age right now. As I've spoken earlier as well, that a lot of things are actually moving on to digital, and we do actually see that there's quite a bit of leaders that is trying to get online to help to amplify about their company's brand and such, right? To start with personal branding, I think we have to ask ourselves, what is personal branding? In many ways, it's actually similar to a corporate brand, which depicts who you are, what you stand for, and the value that you embrace, and the way in which you express those values. It's just like how a company brand helps to communicate its value to customers to stand out from the rest of the competition, right? And a personal brand does the same for individuals, as it helps to communicate a unique identity, giving a clear value to potential employers, clients, and also audience that you want to intend to reach out to. So you can look at personal branding like a story that evolves through time, because once you have more experience, your story will be even more robust, and that story can play an important role in establishing how you are boosting your career and getting the message to your right audience as well. For instance, in fact, in the job application process, or more often than not, hiring managers do look at job candidates' personal brand influencing in their hiring decisions. Therefore, a personal brand should highlight your strengths, establish a reputation, build trust, and communicate the unique attributes of how you can bring your current or desired industry with great cultivation and deep thought through on about how your brand is supposed to perform. That will signal to employers whether if you are the right fit for the open role, right? So another example is social media, which everybody is using at this point and age now. And the four main platforms that people use in driving personal brands are like your LinkedIn, your Twitter, and your Instagram and TikTok, right? And the driving force behind these hits and likes are the content of the individuals, right? And it's either you love them or you hate them, and yet you still follow them, right? I hope this gives the audience a view of why personal branding is important and how you want to shape that persona of yours to face the right audience and purpose to your aspect of things.
Absolutely, very well structured thought process, Evelyn. And thanks for sharing this. Mohita, do you want to build on that? Or rather, how organizational and personal branding are different and need to be managed differently?
So let me just get back to the basic definition of what a brand is, right? So a brand is, it came with identification. It helps identify a person or a product or a service. So even in terms of a personal branding, it is about identifying that person. So that's where the similarities are. Now, with a brand, we know a premium is attached to it. So a Louis Vuitton you can charge a lot more versus a handbag you would buy from a local vendor. So the premium that is attached to a brand can be worth thousands of dollars, sometimes even billions of dollars, and it can be attached to a person, and it can also be attached to a company, right? And then generally the brand which is attached to a company, it can be a couple of $1 billion, like I mentioned. It'll be much higher than the value of the revenue that the company brings in. So if you talk about personal branding, I think everybody knows who Jeff Bezos is, Amazon, right? Jeff Bezos, Amazon. And he said something very clear about personal branding. He said personal branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And that is what personal branding is. It is a unique combination of skills and experiences of what you are and how you present yourself outside of in the outside world. So it also helps you differentiate versus your competition. All right. So then if you look at personal branding, it's not just in the corporate world. In reality, the personal brands probably started not in the corporate world. It started with entertainment. Amitabh Bachchan, for example, such a huge brand. Sachin Tendulkar, another big brand. So it actually started, the personal branding portion started much more with non-corporate people, and now people have realized the value of the brand, and you're beginning to see that even with the leaders of different companies. Now, if you look at the difference between the two, in reality, corporate branding is a lot easier to manage because it is something that you have people put at the back of it. There are brand guidelines, there are ways in which you should be talking about it and things like that. In terms of a personal brand, it becomes a lot more about the person's life experiences and interests, and that may change over time. So as it changes over time, you have to be able to manage that branding, and most of the time that falls upon the person themselves rather than having people behind it to push it. Right. So what is beginning to now happen, like Evelyn mentioned, with all this digital social media platforms, is personal branding versus company branding is blurring, and it's not black and white anymore. And that's why people are beginning to associate the leaders of a company with that company's values. So if you look at Elon Musk and Tesla, Jeff Bezos and Amazon, Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, they're not just the head of the company, they've become the face of the company, right? So so while there were, like I mentioned, while there were lots of people behind company brands, there are now people investing in building the brands of their leaders as well. And until that happens, you will still see companies being bigger than the people, and there'll be a handful of people who still have that personal brand which drives the company. So that is primarily the difference between the two.
I'll come back again as to how now in this age scenario of virtual or and social media taking prominence, uh, how organizations should focus on their leadership branding. Okay, but moving on to Udit, how much interest or stake or owners the organization can have or need to have in personal branding of its leaders, and why is it important?
I said Mohit and Evelyn put it very aptly on the brand side of it, and on the I would say context to the personal branding. And I really loved Mohita, your example of Amitabh Bachchan and Sachin Tendulkar, very nicely put. So moving on to the organizational part of it, Anand, I would say people buy from people. Today, the lines are getting blurred when it comes to on B2B marketing or a B2C marketing. It's H to H, it's human to human, right? And it also impacts brands in a larger way, right? And each individual action has a very rub off effect on a brand. When you talked about recently Cristiano Ronaldo moving away the two Coke bottles in the front, right, had a huge impact on a brand, right? So it talks about how people are creating impact on brands as well. So having said that, bringing back to the organizational view, my view is organizations today give equal weightage or perhaps more, not just to leaders but every employee. Each employee in the organization is a brand custodian, and with that context in mind, I would say organizations have started to look at personal branding on a three-dimensional manner. So with pandemic coming in, it has just accelerated the need to be on social media in a far more aggressive manner than it was earlier. Earlier, we were only restricted as a one spokesperson going into a press or media. Today, how can you actually democratize that across the organization? So when I look at the current organization where I work, there is what do you say, standard company corporate channel where organization leverage to share updates on new products, corporate news, thought leadership, company culture, global events. And how can they extend the reach through leaders, right? And how can they actually include their channels, handles, extending the reach is becoming another impactful way. So it helps multiply the reach to top leaders, reaching out to their networks, bring forward their experience and insights in industry. It uplifts the share of voice. It just multiply that share of voice, altogether. Not only this, I would say it is very important how organizations are engaging employees as brand advocates. And as I said, each employee is a brand custodian. And if all of them can be enabled to share the brand story, topping up with their insight, it's something becomes very, very powerful. And there are platforms such as VoiceStorm, HQ that helps with curated content, employees can use them globally. It enables them to maintain continuity and offers gamifications along the way to have more fun and reach, amplifying up their individual scores as well. So with all these in line, Anand, I would say organizations have started to put equal or more emphasis on the personal branding side of it, not only to leaders but across the organization from top down to bottoms up. That's what I.
Sure, thank you. Very valid points for that. I had some follow-up questions, but of course I'll come back later to it. Uh, Evelyn, now since we have established that yes, both personal branding is important for both individual as well as corporates, how organization can ensure uh, uh, or can put efforts to build a personal brand of their leaders or leadership?
Yeah, we do actually have like quite a bit of dilemma here, right? Because it's such a gray area at times that if you do it right, you get the right kind of response. But if it's a bad one, then it probably attributes back to, hey, your comms is not doing the job, or you didn't run the campaign correctly and get the right person. But through my experience, maybe I can share a few attributes that how an organization can consider in helping leaders to build their personal branding. I think first is that you have to define who your personal brand leaders are, because by choosing the right individual and discovering who an employee or persona to be for the brand has to get very specific about his or her area of expertise is, right? Perhaps in terms of like what the person can do in terms of the expert knowledge in a very niche industry or specific segment in terms of a larger industry that he has certain influence on, or it could be about their involvement in a specific business situation that lends a particular insight on a segment of the market, right? And sometimes this is the way how they actually see the world due to their living experiences that intersects with their work in a unique way. This actually gives a very good story, right? To suss out that kind of content, and consider what their personal expertise is, and be very specific about how exactly you're going to do that. I think next is also looking at the kind of leadership keywords to associate with the persona. So once the team has actually established who the individual can share, it's time to discover how the company wants to share it, right? And that individual personal kind of brand tone has to be aligned with the company brand to emulate the same effect. Be that it's warm, compassionate, it's collaborative, or it's decisive, or being, a creative visionary in that sense, right? Creating a list of the top 10 leadership keywords that could help to shape your leadership kind of personal brand that aligns to the company is very important, so that you know that whatever content or the kind of keywords that you want to associate with actually goes well with your company kind of brand. And next is actually to create the original story or even content around this persona, right? Every leadership persona has an origin story of their line of work and experience, and the personal branding that aligns with the individual and the companies is a good story to start with. So you need to actually hone in that kind of unique experience, how exactly this person has done a thing in a certain way, and be able to create a content that's out of this to be aligned with the company's brand as well, right? And next is that perhaps you can actually outline your leaders' lateral connections and the community or ecosystem that they are with, right? Great leaders have very strong connections, and those connections would actually build over time for them, will be the best advocates, right? And you shouldn't be leaning on things that they are not very sure with. And making a list of these connections would actually help the leader to be able to lean on sharing the content which they will be creating. And consider that some of these connections will be personal acquaintance in other industries that will expand the reach into the audiences in the future as well, right? So last but not least, I think this is the most important, is that you have to describe your audience, who this message is supposed to go out to. The most effective personal brands to have a strong idea of who they will likely to consume the content they created. Is your audience those that are in your field, or you're reaching out to hoping to reach audiences within the same industry or ecosystems? So you need to describe the audience's demographics, job function, and the information that needs in the most detailed way that you can. So when you discover a personal brand leader or persona, it's important to lay a careful foundation before jumping into creation of personal brand content. Take the time to define your persona's area of expertise. Choose the right leadership words, keywords that would help him best describe him or her attributes. Yeah, and of course, then creating an interesting personal origin story, right? And then you outline the kind of connections and community to help to amplify the content and describe who will be interested in this kind of content that will be being created. With these, I think 5 short steps, I think you will actually be able to amplify your personal brand leader in the right way. Yeah, I mean, I have an example of how how I used to do this with our team in telecommunications previously. We are starting very new products that's out in the market, just like Udit, doing UiPath, that sort of thing. We are doing IoT, and IoT in the last 3 years has not really been like a top topic until recent times, where it's quite prevalent now. So we have to find very creative stories to tell why is it that telecommunication is the right partner to go to, especially for some of the products that we are serving. I mean, everybody knows that it's a telecommunications company, but why as explicitly they should be coming to us in that sense. So we managed to craft out a few series of campaigns that is very segment focused, and we managed to get some of our customers and even our business development folks on the ground to be writing these stories and to share their challenges, or even what was the business finding for that segment of the market. It resonated well with the market because we are speaking a language. We understand where exactly the solution is supposed to fit, and how this would actually fit in the wider ecosystem as well. And getting the right brand leader and persona to amplify that, it's very important, because they have the right networks to sit up and listen to. And also with that, that would actually complement the net new that we intend to actually garner in the campaign as well. So it worked out perfectly, and I think these are a few steps that you can try out for your company.
Awesome, Evelyn. Thank you so much. Okay, I really like the idea of creating a story after finding out the right persona to amplify. I was just thinking that perhaps the same opportunity or amplification of a persona can be utilized by leadership, by HR to identify and reward a few very high performing individuals and others, because it has a flip side as well. Because suppose you have a team of 10 senior vice presidents, and if the company is promoting only 2, the other 8 will have their eyebrows raised. Okay, so yes, but this is certainly that in the interest of organization, one has to look at the right identification of the persona and then application. Right, you cannot just use blanket for all. Thank you so much, Evelyn. Mohita, coming to you. Evelyn, a very threadbare captured how organizations should build on the personal brand of the leaders. I'm flipping the question: how an individual should work on enhancing his own personal brand? Please go ahead, Mohita.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So if you think of the big names in corporate, right, the names that I've already mentioned, people like Jeff Bezos, or you look at Elon Musk, or you look at Mark Zuckerberg, everybody has their own style. Everybody has the way they come across outside. You have Mark Zuckerberg always in his gray t-shirt. You have Richard Branson, who's like totally flamboyant. So what's important when you do your personal branding is this is about your story, right? It's about you. So you need to come across as authentic and trustworthy. If that doesn't come across, then you'll get called out in social media immediately. So you cannot say one thing and do something else. So that has to be very clear when you present yourself outside, because finally this is about you, right? So what is important to do your personal branding is you need to showcase your specialities. You have to go and document every experience and achievement that you have. And unless it's your own company, it is important that you brand yourself separate from the company. If it is your own company, then you become like a Mark Zuckerberg versus Facebook, right? But there are very few of us like that. Most of us are going to shift from one job to the other, unless it's like me who's been with this company 17 years. But then most people shift every 3 or 4 years. So it's important that you actually build your own brand. And everything from speaking engagements to taking learnings on LinkedIn, awards that you get, all of those contribute to building your brand. So you need to tell your story via social media, especially LinkedIn, because that's where people go most to look at what you are as a person in the professional life. So take myself for example, right? I'm doing exactly that right now. I'm building my brand as a marketer, and that's what I want to be seen as a marketer. But I have other interests such as diversity and inclusion, transformational leadership, especially around coaching. So if you go and look at the kind of posts that I put on my LinkedIn, it will be around these themes. So it's very important for a person to understand um, what are your strengths, how do you want to project yourself outside, and then build that story around your experiences and achievements, and that is what you present outside. Now, one of the best ways to do this is, of course, networking. And right now, because of COVID, it is all social. So that's one of the areas you should be looking at. And I think Evelyn mentioned this earlier, was a target audience, right? It's the basic number one of marketing. Who is your target audience? So that will also decide which platforms you want to be on. Do you want to be on LinkedIn, or do you want to be on TikTok, or do you want to be on Facebook, or do you want to be on YouTube? It all depends on what is it that you're trying to achieve. Social media influencers have become huge because of this. So you have influencers who are on gaming, you have influencers on tech, you have lifestyle influencers, food bloggers. So but the platforms that they use are different based on what is it that they are trying to achieve. um, so one of the other things, surprisingly, if you think back, one of the biggest influencers or people who managed to personally brand themselves years and years ago is Oprah Winfrey, right? So she associated herself with a lot of causes. She looked at how she could do better for the world, and she's actually worth $2.5 billion now. It's her brand. And that's what she's built over the years. So not all of us are going to be an Oprah Winfrey, but that doesn't mean we don't take that time to build our brand. So no matter what level you are at, take that time to understand your strengths and talk about your achievements outside. Like Evelyn mentioned earlier, even employers are going and looking at what you're posting on social media. They're going and looking at your LinkedIn profile. They're looking at how many recommendations you've got, what kind of areas you've been posting on. So it goes beyond leadership and doing your personal branding for the company. You have to do it for yourself. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mohita. I really like the straightforward response that you cannot just leave personal branding in the hands of organization, that they will take care of, right? They would also take care of it once they realize or recognize that, oh, this is he's a or she's a brand, right? So let's capitalize on that. Absolutely, absolutely. Good. Udit, which are the elements one should keep in mind while working on personal branding? Because the more we are dependent on social, the more are the I'll say landmines wherein if you step once, you are trolled and then you're gone, right? So what one should take care of? Over to you.
Yeah, so thanks, Anand. And I think I'm just building on what Evelyn said and Mohita said, very relevant points. They covered it quite a lot. And moving on and building on some distinctive points from there, I think the first step I would say is be ready and willing to invest in personal branding. A lot of people feel shy and they say that, oh, it'll happen on its own, I will not do it. And but I must say you should leave the casual approach behind and adopt a more structured and a programmatic method. That definitely works. It's not that somebody else would come and do it for you. You have to do it for yourself, as Mohita said. So something which is very scripted steps, I would say, nothing new, but I would say it's important that when you go onto social media or to build your personal brand as a first step, your profile should be complete. You write about your story, and as Evelyn said, it has to be optimized with the right keywords. So it's a starting mile. Be active and responsive, I would say, is another one. And just look at the wave of moment marketing today. Where we are able to take advantage of the current happenings. And I was literally blown away by the by the social media post what Zomato did at the IPO announcement day, right? And it just became viral, and a lot of people started to, and it find itself very well across different influencer communities, and people started to ride that wave. I think that's something which is important on social media. It's not about what you are posting. You have to be interested in others, you have to be active, you have to be more responsive to share your more opinions, so it creates more visibility and lend you a different character. Okay, you are you a critic to a certain thing, or are you do you really like to follow certain sport, or do you like to follow certain celebrity, or do you like to follow certain style or a content? It will start to give you a character overall. The third point, I would say, consistency and continuity. It is not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? So it has to go on, and you have to be consciously regular and with your content. And I'm a great fan of this gentleman called Ankur Wariku, in case many of you have heard of. People forgot that he's a founder of Nearby, or he started Groupon. All they know that he's a social evangelism. He is doing life coaching, he's doing mentoring, he's doing all types of different courses for people. And he has created, even when he has his own business, he has created a very distinctive brand for himself. I think I would say Ankur has been very consistent, very regular in terms of uh, posting it on social media, what he stands for. The other thing I would say, that find the right to ride the tide, which means that identify certain key influencers to follow. Because if we are able to follow certain influencers in your own niche, you participate more actively, help build more followership and traffic more organically, and to some point it will take us to a level of influencing the influencers, and it becomes very important. I see a lot of people, as Mohita said, that have become hero from zero, and they are huge YouTubers today. For example, you have Bhuvan Bam. He's actually as equal a celebrity today in Bollywood as in the virtual world. So these kind of trends to keep in mind becomes very important to be on social media. So it's what I'm trying to say. It is not as important as what you post, but it's also important what you also follow and be active and responsive towards it. Uh, the last two bits, I would say, attention spans are short. So if we keep the content which is very precise, very short, and snackable, people love it. So in my current organization, we love to do more of video posts, and we love to narrate our story through videos, and we make sure that the videos do not run more than 30 to 40 seconds, and that's what the attention span today on any medium for the audiences, and your messages can get across very clearly. I think last point, Mohita has touched upon, Evelyn has touched upon, but I will like to touch upon a little briefly about it as well, is about understanding your target audience and understanding the mood of your target audience in these mediums is very important. One size fits all doesn't really work very well. For example, you go onto a Facebook, you go onto an Instagram, you're more casual. You are wanting to showcase about your more family life. You want to talk about your passions, your hobbies, what you love as a person outside work. And you come onto LinkedIn, it's more career, more professional. You want to talk about your body of knowledge around it. And when you come on Twitter, it's very short, and it has a very short shelf life. You want to narrate the current events or affairs. So it has your tonality, your participation, and your presence across these mediums has to be tailored around as much towards the target audience, also as much towards the mood of the target audience onto these platforms. So these are the elements I would say would be great to keep in mind while building your personal brand.
Thank you so much, Udit. And you rightly touched upon, Mohita also touched upon the influencers these days. Okay. And I'll say there's a flurry of influencers. Everybody says I'm an influencer. Okay. Uh, I somehow, sometimes I feel that I should say, you know what, I'm getting influenced. That's it. I don't, I, I don't influence. I get influenced. Okay. And I think it's an opportunity. Okay, wherein it's an opportunity wherein there should be somebody, some organization which says that, hey, you know what? I'll certify you that you are a gold rated influencer.
So there
Or
is a way, for influencers. They look at the number of followers, they look at the comments, the ratings. So in reality, influencers are also rated in a certain way, because depending on the followers that they have, that's how they get paid, right? So they're not doing this for free.
absolutely, it's exponential, Mohita. Once let's suppose you have a couple of followers, and then it grows exponentially because everybody
Yeah.
says that, oh, if 5,000 people are following him, of course he makes some sense. That's what people start thinking.
No, but there are certificate. I mean, like Instagram and Facebook, they certify their influencers. YouTube certified influencers are there, so they are certified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Cool. Moving on to my next question, Evelyn, and that comes for you. How does one address any conflict between personal and organizational branding? A very heavy question. Like, what are the pros and cons when the personal brand becomes larger than, I will not say life, but larger than the corporate brand? And like Mohita has been naming, I'll take two different names. Mr. Ratan Tata, we know for Tatas, Sir Richard Branson, Larry Ellison, and Larry Page, and many more. Okay, we know Azim Premji is as almost equal to Wipro. So how do we address that conflict? Because with an individual, the entire organization uh, brand or reputation is at stake. Okay, over to you, Evelyn.
Yeah, I think at times it's quite a dilemma there, right? And sometimes you even wonder if you should go by your company's name or by your own personal name in some of these posts, depending on what's the attribute, which hat you are wearing at the point of time, and the type of platform and audiences that you use to talk about a certain aspect of things. And how do you actually separate the two, or you don't even separate them altogether? And then how do you actually merge who you are with what is your business is about? I think the answer is really like you don't really need to pick between one or another, because the answer is almost always a combination of personal branding versus corporate branding at times, right? Because people will actually view you as an individual, and how are you reflecting your corporate brand on the platform as well, right? At times. And you are the person who's creating your own brand if you are amplifying about your own personal brand, right? And then your brand would really also has its own personality as well that makes you unique. I mean, that's the beauty about personal brand, right? Just take for instance, as you have mentioned, and also for Mohita has mentioned a few of these celebrities or even personas that's out there. Just like Sir Ratan Tata, who is an Indian industrialist and a philanthropist and a former chairman of the Tata Sons. And throughout his legacy has always made that the Tata Group cause has always been helping the larger community, accessibility to education, innovating technologies, making sure that everyone in the company understands the value of Tata Sons, staying humble and yet being profitable till the time now. Right? So is that a great part in the aspect of, is he the brand or is his personal brand, right? I think you can't really separate that two to a very to a very last job, like, you know, oh, this is Ratatanta, and that this is, you know, part of Tatasan's group, right? And then another great example that's on the other end of the poll will be your Richard Branson, right? The Virgin Atlantic enthusiastic chairman, who did everything to get attention for his business, which includes hot air ballooning, abseiling down the Manhattan high rises, you know, and even kissing Spice Girl, right? The more he got into the news of his adventures, the more Virgin Atlantic became renowned, right? His personality has always been an airline personality. As they arrive into new markets where his fleets are going, his fame has often precedes the company's, and it's always easy for the company to tap into his personality to establish theirs as well. And you know what's next for them would really be the Virgin Galactic, right? And he has flown into outer space, and he was actually on the 4th test flight on the July 12th that has just passed. And in his flight, he mentioned this: to you kids out there, I'm once a child with a dream, looking up at the stars, and now I'm an adult in a spaceship. If we can do this, just imagine what you can do. Well, he's definitely, you know, selling the next line of generation of what Virgin Galactic is going to be, and definitely the future generations is going to be in space, right? I mean, we have seen Star Trek and space travel, what's new, right? But this is really happening right now. So even if he has just a product who is going to talk better about the product, and who is going to talk better than the product than himself, right? Who could possibly be more passionate about his business and the brand and the brand. So no matter which type of branding you ultimately choose, I think a key part of your work will involve identifying your own brand attributes that aligns to your company's, so that, you know, your customers can quickly understand what your brand is all about, which is, I think, a great win-win for both yourself and the company as well. So, you know, I don't see that there is a need to actually talk about, you know, the pros and cons, and, you know, having to separate the two in a very distinct manner, because, you know, a personal brand is very unique, and so is a company, as what Mohita has mentioned. You know, you have a brand book for the company, and this is how you are supposed to live and breathe the company brand. But personality actually brings out the livelihood of how you can actually live and breathe that corporate brand of yours as well, and give it you know, a different spice and a sidekicks that comes along with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I deliberately did not take any example like Kingfisher Group's Vijay Mallya, you know. So that's where I see that, you know, and it more often happens with founders, basically, you know, when either the founder casts a very heavy image shadow on the corporate brand, and vice versa, because we have seen few organizations, for example, you know, Satyam in India, Satyam Computer Systems was a very big corporation, and when the you know, issue happened, fiasco happened, almost all the leaders were labeled as that they must have moved up or they must have done something wrong, right? So I'm giving the example where corporate brand casted a spell or doom on leaders, right? Whereas Vijay Mallya is an example wherein the individual casted this on the entire corporate. Okay. So yeah, okay, all right. Moving on to my next question, Mohita, in what all ways organization can leverage the brand of the leaders and actually capitalize on the brand ambassadors endorsement?
Yeah, so if you look at in today's world, right? So all customers are actually looking to trust a company before they buy, and because digital is become so prevalent, they, especially when it's a big spend, they want to go and take a look at who's there, who's the leader. They want to be able to connect with the leader, and if the leader is well known, strong, has values which show up, then that brand gets trusted more, and they build a connect with the customer, right? So when they share best practices or they share a new launch, they are much more trusted. So you remember Steve Jobs, he would come and he would show his latest iPhone, and people would wait with bated breaths to see what he's going to be talking about. in reality, if you look at the technology that Samsung has, it's probably superior than Apple. But because Steve Jobs came there and he did a branding of the iPhone and talked about how it was easy to use, it became Steve Jobs Apple, right? And that kind of helped to build the brand. And it also helped to create that premium which wasn't there before with Apple. So that's how it can influence. Now, what it and it also influences in terms of standing out versus competition. So Apple versus Samsung, like I said, Samsung technology is probably better and advanced, but with all that Steve Jobs did to create the brand around himself and iPhone, it is always perceived with a lot more interest when a new version comes through. So it's kind of in some ways pushed back competition, which has left guys like Nokia, BlackBerry, all of them out of the game. They are not even in the game anymore. One of the other things is it also helps to drive revenue, right? The reputation of a trusted leader can help to drive revenue. And it's not necessary that the leader needs to be flamboyant or controversial. You don't need to be a Richard Branson or an Elon Musk to do this. So let me give you an example of Schneider Electric. I represent Schneider Electric, and the CEO of Schneider Electric is Jean-Pascal Tricoire. So if you go on to his LinkedIn page or even look at what is there in Wikipedia, he has always been a strong supporter of sustainable development, and also diversity and inclusion and gender equality. So what he has done is he's taken his brand and it has now translated into the way Schneider Electric is evolving. So this year, Schneider Electric was was actually awarded the most sustainable company by this company called Corporate Kings, and that is what he has been doing. He's also been on the He for She UN initiative to drive diversity, and he's walking the talk. He's got 44% women in his executive board. So, and these are the people who run the business. So the thing is, he's with all this, he's also been named as the Glassdoor's top CEO. So what has been happening is his personal interest he has leveraged on to driving the company and the company being a leader in sustainability and diversity. This has led to the share prices. If you look at the share prices last year versus through the pandemic, it's doubled. And that has very rarely happened, especially during COVID times, right? Most companies, it has gone down, especially when, we faced the hit last year with where everybody was wondering what's going to happen. But with Schneider Electric, it has doubled. It's because of all of these things where the leader has come out and shown that he's got a strong team and he's driven it with pushing sustainability. So one other important thing, and this is what Evelyn had also brought up earlier, is talent. If you want to attract talent, and if they see a strong leader at the helm, they know that it is a company that's going to be around. It's a company that believes in its people, and that's why you will also end up attracting talent which will align with the company's strategies, and you don't end up with the leftovers, right? You end up with people who you want within your company. So in a nutshell, if you look at it, it's four things. It helps you connect with the company's customers. It helps the company stand out versus competition. It drives revenue because it's got a trusted leader at the helm of affairs. And finally, it attracts the talent that you're looking to bring into your company. So remember, it is critical for a leader to walk the talk. And that is what helps to drive the brand and the leader forward and advance further. So thank you.
Udit, I'm not able to resist myself, and I'll go back to that question that personal and corporate branding are mutually cohesive and interdependent. You know, both have a huge impact on one another. Okay, Is there a magic mantra how you can decouple them during times of stress, but still enjoy the benefits? What's the risk mitigation? I'm going back to the question of Vijay Malia and Satyam example.
Yeah. No, I think, a lot's been spoken on this forum around this topic, I would say, and I think it has started to emerge as a hot trend on this short conversation. But I like to keep it short. I think I often like to make the analogy between the person's identity and the business brand, or a brand for that matter. Audience find it, more authentic, credible if the story comes from people validating their brand experience. And as Mohita touched upon, Evelyn touched upon, and I think if these people are able to walk the talk, and I just give you a example which I think each one of us could relate, is India and Prime Minister Modi, right? And I think there is no better example out here, which so India was positioned in many different ways, and in many not so good ways as well, and always shy, or the good parts of India couldn't come out, right? Modi turned the tide around, and India has been positioned very differently. And suddenly, if you really see, the personal brand of Modi superseded India, and also it positioned India in a very, very different light altogether. So I think today, if I have to say, Anand, branding is far more than just a logo. It's an experience, and what Modi had created, Prime Minister Modi had created, it's created an experience for a country like India, and able to build upon certain propositions where the brand could start talking independently, and Mr. Modi, facilitator of that brand, can come in as a different person altogether. So I would say it's a very cohesive, well-designed brand which can differentiate business from competitors. It builds trust with the audience, give them the first impression. It all starts with people. And as I go back to my first point, people buy people. So it all starts with people. And when you say, is there a magic mantra how you can decouple them during the times of stress? I would say have a higher level of inclusion, go beyond your brand as the only handle, or as the only way to promote yourself. So leadership team inclusion as brand advocates or endorsers provide exponential reach and momentum. It provides higher flexibility to tailor local messages, more voice handles in the arsenal, I would say. But when you go about, on the other hand, you go to global or corporate handle, they have to manage multiple priorities across the globe, and hence the content frequency and the control is limited. Now, why I'm just giving you these examples, this is the risk mitigation, right? If you only get very skewed towards one leader, or or only corporate brand, your ability to expand your circle of influence is limited. Risk mitigation strategy is have a higher level of inclusion across your leadership, include them, and then how can we actually start creating a programmatic way to drive more content through them, is a magic mantra. So for example, I'll give you in UiPath, we do a complete program which is called an Elevate program, under which we also look at the profiles of the top leaders in the country, and how can we leverage those leaders and personas and communities, and start engaging through them, not only with respect to UiPath, but also, otherwise as well, into very subject opinion and expertise. It elevates our brand, it just elevates their brand, and it able to provide more flexibility for us to be present in many more ways to the market. So what I'm just trying to say, and giving back to the example, that Modi and India are synonymous today, but people become very nervous if tomorrow Modi retires as a PM, who could be the other PM. So I'm just saying India could have also looked at having a higher level of inclusion, bringing other leaders into the foreplay to diversify that risk, if I'm able to articulate that well. So what I'm trying to say is leadership team personal branding is a must-have. It's an added channel to enhance the overall share of voice and strengthen the circle of influence, Anand.
Very well laid out thoughts, Udit. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been my privilege. We are almost on the top of the hour, so it's my privilege to host such an esteemed panel and to hear from them firsthand. I'm confident that you have enjoyed this enriching session as much as I did. We tried to find out how individual leaders and corporates can leverage each other's brands. Evelyn did mention about how important personal branding is, choosing the right leader or persona for promotion, that is, promotion of the brand, since it is to be aligned with the corporate brand, creating a story around, and then dilemma between how much interdependence the individual and corporate branding should have on each other. Mohita did talk about premium attached to a company or a person. Personal branding has more on the onus of individual. Earlier, for example, Mark Zuckerberg or Mr. Elon Musk have their own stories carved out. You need to come out as real and trustworthy and showcase your specialties on the social media these days. The individual leader cannot leave the personal brand to the organization. They must use social media appropriately. And Udit did mention about be ready to invest and there is no shying away. Branding is an experience. And Udit gave example of brand Modi and brand in India and talked about leadership succession planning as well. That's why it assumes so much important. So guys, I've been taking my notes. I hope your diary is full as well. It's always beneficial to hear from the leaders directly. You can watch the past webinars on www.cxotv.news. I thank each one of you for taking out time and attending this event and wish you all the success during these challenging times. I once again thank Evelyn, Mohita, and Udit for joining us today. With this, we call it a day. Thanks again for your esteemed presence and wish you a great week ahead.
For more updates from CXOTV, please like and subscribe to our channel.